Yeah. I'm hoping there's going to be a second surge. I don't think so.
Okay. All right, no worries. No worries. Bye-bye.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me all right at the back? Yes, volume's good. Nice. Thank you so much for coming. We are really excited for this session. My name's Sam Parfitt. I'm the founder and the CEO of the True Athlete Project. And I was a tennis player. And I had lots and lots of ups and downs through sport, which is why I eventually founded the True Athlete Project, which is all about creating a better world through sport and providing experiences of sport where young people can flourish, not just in their performance, but their well-being, who they are as a whole person. And we've been delivering the Athlete Enrichment Program at this Games, which is the wraparound support for your children. So we've had 26 mentors providing workshops and support for your children. We've had meditation classes, and we've got a little bit of a sample at the back just so you can get a feel for what the Athlete Lounge is like, where you won't have seen, but it's packed with lots of fun stuff for your children to be doing. So there's a memorabilia museum where our mentors have brought different items that are really special to their sporting journey. So not medals and trophies, but things that are really, really meaningful about who they are as a person. We've had a section that's all about giving them a space to actually imagine the future of sport, the change that they want to see in the world. And so all of those things are about helping young people to flourish, and that's the role that we're playing. But this session is all about the role that you play as parents. And it really, really matters, because being a young athlete is hard, being a person is hard, and being a parent of a young athlete can be really, really hard. So we've got an amazing panel. I'm really excited to just have this conversation, see where it goes. We'll have about 45 minutes of chatting, and then another about 45 minutes to have questions from you. And if you're watching back home, then you can type your questions in the chat, and we have someone who will be picking up those questions and can feed them in at the end. So, let's begin. Shona, tell us a bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Shona. I'm a rifle shooter, and I'm here to tell you a bit about working with your parent as a coach. My dad has coached myself and my sister for the last 15 plus years to 4 consecutive Olympic Games. So that's my experience.
Hello everyone, my name is Millie Kellyman, former skeleton athlete. If you don't know what a skeleton is, if you've ever watched Cool Runnings, that's bobsleigh. It's the same track, I should just go head first. It's the same spiel every time, but yeah, so I'm here with my dad. This is my dad. And although we've had a similar experience to Shona, slightly different, whereas in my elite performance, my dad actually wasn't my coach at the time, so yeah, that's me.
Hi, I'm Millie's dad. My name's Charles Kellyman. I got into sports at a very young age, and went on to coach athletics for 17 years. And in those 17 years, part of those years I was coaching Millie before she moved into skeleton. So it's been a journey of ups and downs, as it can be for a lot of parents. But you've heard what she's done, so yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Laura Gallagher, and I am a trampoline gymnast. Or actually, until really recently, I was a trampoline gymnast. I went to the Tokyo Olympic Games, and I represented Great Britain for 20 years. As an elite, I had a gymnast. I had a long time representing my country. just after Tokyo, 18 months ago, I had a baby daughter called Edie, and I returned to training and represented Great Britain at the World Championships just 9 months after I had my daughter. And I guess everything that I've learned as an elite trampolinist, I think will help me and shape my decision making and how I live my life with my daughter as well, and maybe how I can support her as well. But yeah, that's me.
Hello everyone, I'm Claire Halstead. I went to 2 Olympic Games for fencing, and my son Lawrence competed in the London and Rio Olympics. And I've also had a lot of involvement with British fencing, including as medical officer and anti-doping officer.
Awesome, thank you so much. So, Shona, why don't you kick us off? You were coached by your dad. Just tell us a little bit about how that experience was for you.
For the most part, very positive actually. Me and my dad are very similar in a lot of ways, but in a lot of very different ways than him and my sister were. My sister and my dad's relationship, they didn't get on so well as the coach-athlete. So kind of following on from that, to then have a good relationship with him was really quite interesting. But yeah, he's like my bestie, to be honest. We're really good friends. And I think we've both developed as people together, like through our coach-athlete relationship. He talks about learning a lot more about like how to communicate with others and how to like coach others and things that he might not have learned if it had been somebody not his child, I guess. He kind of talks about like having the trust to kind of explore things with somebody who's your kid rather than like other people, I suppose. And I had similar things, like the most trust I could have with anybody really is like a parent. So I've got quite a lot of like health problems. I have arthritis that I got diagnosed with at a young age, and I also have Crohn's. And actually having my dad there as my coach to support me through that as an athlete was like the best thing I could have asked for.
So he really could see you as the whole person.
Absolutely, yeah.
And any sense of why it was different for your sibling? Why that didn't work so well?
Yeah, I think my sister and my dad are very similar in a lot of other ways. They've got very similar personalities. He was very new as a coach when he started coaching her. He hadn't really like developed. He'd still just come out of his own athletic career. So I think just like that development wasn't really there yet, and I think this sort of education program really wasn't there. So neither of them really knew how to communicate with each other and how to develop and things. Okay. So I think I was just lucky that I was the second one.
Cool. Thanks, Shona. And Millie, tell us about your experience. So you had one sport where you were coached by your dad and one sport where you weren't.
Yeah, so I did athletics from age 8. Dad didn't start coaching me till I was about 10, 11. And yeah, so I did athletics right from a youngster all the way up until uni. You helped me a lot through that process, and there was definitely ups and downs. And I think I'll let you talk about your experience of it, but then going on to do skeleton, obviously there's not a skeleton track in the backyard. Like, there's no way you can practice skeleton in the UK, so you have to be a part of the Great Britain programme. And I got into that by going through a talent ID process. And yeah, it's a completely different world. I didn't quite make it as an elite athlete in athletics. But yeah, having my parents' understanding of what that journey would be like was really important. Yeah, so I think, yeah, I'll let you speak, Dad, about your experience of coaching me, because I can't really talk on it. But yeah, I think the support that I've had throughout the whole process has been really, really great.
Amazing. Go for it, Charles.
Okay. What was the question? Yeah, so as Millie said, she got into the sport at around the age of 8. I took her to the track, and I kind of fell into coaching. Like I say, I did athletics when I was younger. There was a lot of children at the track, and some of the coaches had like an enormous amount of children that they were coaching. And I foolishly said, I used to do athletics. Do you need any help? And the coach at the time says, hang on a minute. Went into the club, got the club secretary out, and she said to me, I hear you want to coach athletics. Okay. So I was put through my level 1, 2, 3 and 4 coaching courses. and I did it for 17 years. So in terms of coaching my daughter as well as other athletes, it was difficult because, in a way, you're not supposed to favour your daughter, are you? However, she was, in my opinion, slightly better at certain events than the others. And it was difficult trying to split, the fact that you're a dad and a coach. You had to have that mindset that you are a coach, and at this moment you're not a dad. When you get in the car and drive home, you're the dad, okay? Ups and downs. So I'd say the ups for me is seeing my daughter, whether it be crossing the line first, jumping the longest, it's just the elation on her face. And at that age, it was about winning. It was about winning. Coming first in the things that you did. But later on, obviously when you start looking at more technical things in terms of your coaching and the athlete, it was not just about coming first. That's not what matters all the time. It's how you can improve as an individual, and as a coach, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, you look at the good things and you kind of park them because they're good. You look at the bad things and try and improve them. So there'll be times where I'll say to Millie, do this, this and this, and she'll probably think I'm having a go at her. Oh, Dad doesn't like me, kind of thing, she's only 10. But over the years, she kind of understood that it's part of a journey. It's not just a case of winning, because whilst we're at the local track, you might be winning. You go and do the county sports and you might not be winning anymore. So it's about bringing them through that journey and having an understanding of what that journey could look like in the future.
Cool. Thanks, Charles. Just a quick follow-up.
Okay.
How was it to see your daughter then start such a dangerous sport?
Right, I watch Cool Runnings, all right? No, Millie doesn't like the cold. She doesn't like heights, she doesn't like speed. I took her to a theme park many, many years ago. And it was, I can't remember what it was, one of those big wheels. Was it the wheel?
It was the rocking
Yeah,
ship thing. Yeah.
She screamed.
You're so gentle, and there I am.
She was screaming. There was another guy, I think he was opposite us, and I was so embarrassed because he was like just staring at my daughter, thinking, what's wrong with her? So she doesn't, like I say, she doesn't like the cold, she doesn't like speed, she doesn't like. So when she said she was going into skeleton, I thought she was crazy, honestly. The worst part of it is when she sent me a video of her coming down the ice, face first, at 70 miles an hour. Yeah. As a parent, you can imagine how my heart was like. But yeah, it was what she wanted to do at the time. So.
Nice. Thanks, Charles. Claire, let's go to you. So you have quite an unusual situation. So you're an Olympian, your husband was an Olympian, and you have raised an Olympian. I don't know how, is there a club? Do you have a gold card? That's amazing. How did that experience shape how you approach parenting?
Yes, it's rather nice to try and think back as to how it did all work out. There are pros and cons of being in the same sport and having done it at a fairly high level. I think the positives were that we both loved the sport of fencing. We enjoyed the excitement of our international careers and going to the Olympics without ever really getting near any Olympic medals. So it was just the whole experience that we found wonderful. We did actually meet each other through fencing at the fencing club, so that was another positive, obviously. And we made lifelong friends through our own international fencing career and being involved with fencing in the UK. So I think some of that probably rubbed off on our 3 children, and Lawrence was the one who took to fencing. The next thing I thought of as a big advantage, I think, was that we knew what was needed to improve in the sport. Not necessarily to get to the top level, but we knew all the components of how you get from starting off as a child of 8 or 9, Lawrence was 9, I think, through the levels of fencing to improve. So that was a big advantage, I think, that we were aware of all the components that were needed. And the other positive things were that we knew it was really important that, obviously, that he had a lot of fun and enjoyment as he went along, and that the interactions that he had in the club, at competitions, when he started to go abroad with his coach, were friendly and sort of warm and often, loving relationships, loving interactions. We knew that was really important, because that's what would keep him going, as it did for us. The negatives were, I think, that the high expectations, which came from us a bit, but came probably more from him, because his approach, well, you did it, so why shouldn't I be able to? Which was to do with going to World Championships and the Olympics. But we, as I said, we never, I don't think we ever expected anything to do with going to the Olympics, because it became very much more difficult anyway to qualify for the Olympics than when we went, which was a long time ago. So we knew that really the chances of going to the Olympics were pretty low. The other negatives, I think, were that we obviously wanted to tell him what to do when he was fencing in competitions all the time, and we had to make a big effort to step back and let him work it out for himself. So I think we weren't as much in the background as we should have been, and I should think we were over-involved. Also, we would get frustrated with poor refereeing, because we knew what was happening, and so I think that's always difficult when you're a parent who's very well informed in the sport. So I think those were the things I thought of as the positives and negatives, but obviously the positives far outweighed the negatives. Yeah.
Thanks, Claire. And I was looking for the perfect segue into this story, and you touched on letting Lawrence have some freedom and autonomy and choosing his own path.
Yeah, oh, well, this story always makes me laugh. Lawrence and Richard Cruz, who was his training partner, a year older, who came 4th in Rio, Lawrence and Richard grew up together through fencing. They brought each other on all the time. I mean, without Richard, Lawrence, I think, wouldn't have been as good a fencer. They were sparring partners, friends, rivals. They used to go to Poland on a training camp with their Polish coach. And one year when they were, I think, 13 and 14, one evening they had been in their cabin. There was a cabin with a living room and then a bedroom, drinking alcohol. This was Poland, and 13 and 14 year olds. Of course, they weren't supposed to do that. And they heard their coach, Zemek, coming along to check on them. So they rushed into their bedroom, 3 of them actually, and hid in the big cupboard and closed the door. And Zemek came into their cabin and then knocked on the bedroom door, I think. Came into the bedroom, saw nobody there, but he opened the cupboard door and he said, "Ah, Richard, your lesson is 9 o'clock tomorrow. Lawrence, 9:30. Carlo, 10 o'clock. See you then." And closed the cupboard door and went out. And I think that maybe that illustrates the fact that he was prepared to give them. We weren't anywhere there. Parents didn't go on these training camps, and he was prepared to allow them quite a lot of leeway, because they they threw themselves into the training camp. They loved it, and they had a wonderful time. And I think that was instrumental actually in keeping them going. That's
Amazing.
a cupboard story. Anyway.
Laura, so you weren't coached by your parents, but tell us about your experience of being a young athlete and your relationship with your parents through that process.
So I was really lucky growing up. My parents, I come from quite a sporty family. My parents love sport, and I just got to try so many different sports growing up. I did dancing, rugby, football, hockey, netball, table tennis, athletics. I got to try so many things. I was really lucky. Mum, I remember, for example, on a Wednesday, I'd get a lift up to trampolining with my science teacher because I didn't live near the club. It was half an hour away, and Mum was working or whatever. And then Mum would pick me up with a plate of dinner, and we'd go to table tennis, and then I'd go on to netball, or the other way around. No, netball, then table tennis. And then I'd go home, and I was whilst I was training for trampoline, she'd be running my brother around. So, and my dad was working away during the week as well, so she was we were just really lucky. They gave us so many opportunities. Mum was a PE teacher, my dad was a planning engineer, so we weren't just normal family. So I was really lucky to try everything. And Mum, I suppose, to pay for swimming, Mum she was a PE teacher, so they got her into swimming teaching, so we got a free lesson on a Friday swimming, and then she started coaching the trampoline on the Saturday, just because we were there for a couple of hours, so both of us did that, just because she already had those qualifications, and it was just a little, couple of hours, so it was just, filling in the time. So yeah, we just found ways of doing things, and when I was 15, so I represented national schools up to, I did cross country, nationals cross country, national schools netball, I was county javelin champion, and then I think when I was 15 I decided that I got selected for my first ever Great Britain competition, and when I came home I just felt really inspired, and I think that was when I decided that was the sport I really wanted to see how far I could go in. And my mum and dad were fully supportive of that, and but it meant giving up a few of my other sports, so I gave up most of my other sports but carried on with school sports. But it just meant mum and dad were sort of driving me up there. Maybe by this time it was 45 minutes away, so it's a big commitment. You guys probably know all about that. So I was driving up, having to go there maybe 3 times a week at that point, 3 times a week. And it just went on from there. So, so I guess I made that decision. I got to try all the things, and it was up to me. I decided that was what I wanted to do. But up until then, they were taking me to all these places. It was just really, really, really lucky that we were able to have those opportunities.
Wow.
Just feel really grateful for that.
Yeah.
Because it's being a mum now as well. I really appreciate everything that my parents did. I think I always did, because I could see everything that went in. But
Wow. So you were very together through the whole process. They were really.
Yeah, I guess. We never really talked about it. There were times when we'd talk about the blocks a bit later maybe. But there were times when they'd ask me how training was, and I'd be like, and then they didn't really ever push, but occasionally they'd snap back at me and say, well, doing all of this, you can at least be a bit more polite or something, if you're you go through the stage, we're not all perfect, are we? Although, no. When you're teenager and you don't want to talk about it, but I don't think, it wasn't, nothing, no other big beef ever. They knew when to kind of stop. My dad's much more black and white. I think if he sees that I'm not enjoying something, for him it's stop. Don't do that. Whereas my mum wants to try and work it out, what's going on. But none of them ever to my knowledge, got involved in it, that I was aware of, got involved in anything. So apart from, and when she used to coach, she used to coach because she was board waiting in her car. So, and she had the qualification, and she likes sport, and she likes working with kids. So, yeah.
Wonderful. Thanks. Okay, so round 2. I'd like you guys to think of a time, so for Charles and Claire, a time as a parent where you just felt you were 5-star sports parent. You absolutely got it right. It felt like, that was great. And then for you 3, it'll be on the flip side of that. So when was there a moment where you felt like your parent really, really got it right for you? And let's start, here with Shona.
I feel like I can't really think of one, to be honest, which makes him sound like a really bad coach. I don't know, he's usually right. That's the big problem. It's hard to think of an example, like a specific example. He used to, Jen and I, my older sister, we used to fight all the time, and we competed against each other, so it was a bit difficult. And actually, most of the time, he would not get involved in those fights. And I think that was like the wisest decision, because I think it would have been very easy to pick favourites, or play favourites, or do whatever from a coaching point of view. But actually, because he was our parent, it would have just made things worse. So I feel like him not getting involved in our fights was probably the best thing he could have done for us. Let's figure it out ourselves. Usually ended up with me losing, but that's fine. I think that's probably it.
Thanks, Shona. And Millie?
Again, it's hard to think of one example, but I think the best time that I had from my mum and my dad was when they were like most consistent. So even just showing up, every athletics competition, come the rain, the shine, they were there with a cool box, a pack of strawberries. So it didn't matter what I did in my event, it didn't matter how the day went, I knew I could sit in the tent with my cool box and my strawberries, and that was going to get me through. So maybe it's not one moment, but it's that consistency that they were always there. So I'm getting emotional.
Yeah.
That's making me emotional. I don't know if you wanted to do athletes.
No, I was reflecting actually on the walk here. So my dad was my coach, and I was thinking what I would have said to that question, and it was the consistency bit. It was, so I'd left home at 15 or 16 to play full-time tennis, and I knew that whenever I called him, he would pick up the phone. Just that. Just really, really simple. I knew that if I dialed, I'd get him.
I think perhaps the best time, or certainly one of the best times for me, was after the London Olympics. Lawrence decided to stop in his international fencing. He went travelling for quite a while, and then he settled in Denmark with his Danish wife. However, after 2 years before Rio, he decided that he really, really wanted to have another go and see whether he could qualify for Rio, or more importantly, help the team to qualify for Rio. In London, we had a team place anyway, so they had a guaranteed place because of home Olympics. But in all other Olympics, there are only 8 nations that can put a team into the team event. So he went back to fencing because he really wanted to, and he thoroughly enjoyed those 2 years. And the team did qualify. And it qualified, I think, because they had Lawrence in the team, who was quite a leader of that team. I mean, they were a fantastically good team, obviously. And I think then, probably, it was the satisfaction of knowing that he enjoyed the sport so much, and also the high level competition, that he wanted to do that.
And he describes that going to Rio very differently to going to London, almost as a sort of rebirth. It was his choice, and he felt free, relaxed.
Yes, he did. It was a wonderful experience for him, because London had been very stressful because he fractured his wrist just a few months before the final selection date for London. So he couldn't compete. He did get selected in the end for the team event, but he worked really, really hard. But it was a very stressful time. So I think that's why he felt that helping the team and being in the team for Rio was just a wonderful experience.
I think for for me, it was probably, I'd just come back from the World Championships junior, I'd just won, and I, for some reason, experienced a huge confidence issue, which led to just mental blocks, which I just couldn't get onto the trampoline for about a year. You might have heard Simone Biles, twisties, similar thing. It's very common in our sport, across gymnastics as well. And that was my first thing, and no one really ever spoke about it back then. And I couldn't really articulate how I was feeling. I didn't really know what was going on, but I had seen it in other people as well before. And I suppose I did shut out everyone because I didn't know how to talk about it. So I suppose when I would go home, so I was about 17, I was still living at home, they could obviously see maybe I was upset or a change in my behaviour. I'm not really sure. But Mum obviously picked up on it and recognised it. And I didn't know this until very recently, that she actually called my coach. I think she was probably asking me, and I would just be like, no, don't talk about it. Like, shush. She actually did talk to my coach in the end, I think, because she was worried about me and just wanted to check, and she knew it was training related. But I didn't know this at the time, and I guess that my coach was able to then say, this is what's going on in the gym, we're working through it. My coach actually told me this, my mum still didn't tell me this. In fact, I actually haven't had a conversation with my mum about this since. But yeah, my coach told me about it when I was talking to her about something else. And so Mum had picked up the phone, spoken to her, and I think that was just a really cool thing to do, because it meant that she could just have a low-level impact, I suppose, and know the right things. And she did step back. So, but I didn't know that at the time, but I do now. Maybe I should speak to her.
So for me, as Millie said, there's many moments. The one that springs to mind, and Millie probably doesn't know I'm going to say this. The one that springs to mind is when Millie first qualified for English schools. Look at the face. I mean, you see, this is why it was such a proud moment for me, because I took you to go and collect all the sporty gear, and as soon as she got home, she wanted to put it all on, and he's like, "Take a picture of me, take a picture of me." And I took those photographs, and just the beaming, the happiness from her, that she not only that she'd made it, but she thought she looked good in the outfit as well. No, but it was that was the proudest moment for myself. Yeah,
that's lovely. Thanks for sharing. Okay, so a slightly tougher question, maybe. How about a moment where you just got it wrong, Claire and Charles, or in the case of you three, where it just that didn't work for you, in terms of maybe a conversation that was had, or an action, or whatever it was in relationship to your parent-child relationship. Claire, why don't you kick off again?
Well, the incident that comes to mind was very embarrassing for us. Lawrence was sent home in disgrace from the Junior World Championships in Plovdiv after the individual event and before the team event, because he and some of the others were messing around in the hotel, and he was responsible for opening a fire tap and soaking part of the hotel in the evening. And so the next day he owned up, and he and one of the other boys in his team were sent home. So they didn't fence in the team event. And I remember very well getting the phone call to say from the then president of British Fencing to say that they were sending him home. In fact, when I'm talking about it, I can feel it again. I'm getting cross. I'm already getting cross. Oh, and by the way, Lawrence told me I could tell this story. So. And we happened to be in the car, and we were furious, absolutely furious. And of course, we did wonder whether we hadn't brought him up properly to behave properly abroad. But and when he came back, he was very worried and very embarrassed as well. So in the end, we were able to talk about it, and he was, he was disciplined by British Fencing, and we then sort of managed to get over it and realised it's, it happens. They mess around sometimes. Teenagers are not easy to look after abroad quite often when they will get together. So I think that was a difficult incident, but we did manage to get over it.
And Lawrence now runs the True Athlete Project's athlete mentoring program. So if your child gets sent home for flooding a hotel in Eastern Europe, there's still hope.
Any other stories?
No.
For me, it's not like a specific time. It was probably just more that Mum and Dad, I never remember them saying that they were proud of me or anything like that. We never really talked about feelings or emotions or anything like that. And I think it's because everyone just moved so quickly. Like, there were lots of running around. Everyone was busy. Mum and Dad worked really hard. My brother was there, but I think it was that feeling, not knowing, and never really. If I won a competition or lost one, you wouldn't know. But it was almost to the other extreme. So I think when I did well, it would have been nice sometimes to maybe have had, that was you were great or something. Because I don't think. It feels awful saying that, because I think they'd be quite upset if I. Don't put that on there. But you know what I mean. Like I think it's a way of keeping you grounded, but then maybe going a little bit too fast in some ways. But I always knew that I had 100% support, but that the feeling side of it, we were joking. I was talking with Alma earlier. Like, we do a self-compassion session, and one of the exercises is think of someone like warm that would, if you've had a really horrible game or something, I would go to Mum, but not for the reason, not for a hug or whatever, just to, I know that she'd always be, and I know that they're proud of me, but I think it's that just sometimes that's that low-key kind of build you up as well. But yeah, it's not a criticism, it's just maybe it's just a...
It's a helpful reflection.
Yeah, thanks. I feel really guilty now.
Time when I got it really wrong. Again, it's when you were really young. Can't remember how old you were, but it was your first indoor multi-event challenge games, and Millie just liked being around other kids and liked having fun, but she was also doing really well in the games as well. I think it was the final event. At this point, she was in the lead. I'd say you would have been a clear winner. Yeah. I think it was it a shot, one of those softball shot put things. But coming out it was at the NIA, and coming out into the arena, those doors that you come in and out, they're really heavy, and one of them swung closed and hit Millie in her right shoulder. So she didn't do the last event, and because she didn't do the last event, she wanted to go home. Was it me, you and... Yeah, Mum. There was just the three of us here at that time. And knowing that she could have used her left hand and just threw it on the floor and still won, it was... I can't tell you... I haven't told you the emotions that was going through me at the time. But driving home... I think your mum was driving, right? Having road rage at this point. We travelled maybe 2 or 3 miles away from the NIA, and Millie's in the back seat playing and eating her strawberries or whatever. And she says, it feels all right now. Oh. Now, me and her mum are very different. I'm the calm one. So I was trying to say to me, shut up, don't say anything. And of course, her mum was, you should have done it, you could have done this, you could have done that. And I just sat in silence, I think, because I didn't want to, even though that's how I was feeling, I didn't want to let Millie know that that's how I was feeling, because obviously I went on to coach you as well, and if I came out with things like that as a dad, how could I coach you as well? So, but that was a moment where I thought, if she just threw it with the left hand, she could have got on the podium, got a certificate, a medal, whatever it was at the time, and that opportunity was gone. Not gone forever, because you went on to do other things, but it was just that one moment that I thought, yeah, I could have done better.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same moment. It's the same moment, but I think it was more so that I felt that, like, this is the first time, by the way, I'm having this session. Like, I felt that, and more so from my mum, actually, so thank God. But it was like a moment of, oh, I've let them down, and I didn't like that, and I think I've carried that into my, like, rest of my career, that I obviously want to make them proud, as you said, but yeah, I think in those moments it was a learning point in terms of I didn't understand the severity of the competition, like, at that point, and there was, like, other clubs there, scouts there, like, my parents knew that and knew the opportunities that were coming after, potentially, if I'd have got on the podium, had the photo, all of that. And yeah, that pressure almost was a bit too much for me at that point. I think after reflecting on it since I've been an adult, I was like, oh, they could have handled that as a learning point of actually, this was a good opportunity, never mind next time type of thing.
Taking out their own desire for what they wanted for you and actually using that as a point that served the bigger picture, the longer game.
I almost wasn't ready for it.
That's right.
Like, I think I was there for the fun. I'd made friends. I was
about to say that. You were there enjoying it, having fun. And what you saw from your parents was, being adults, we just wanted her to win. Well, your mum did. Just wanted her to win. Whereas Millie was there for the fun, the enjoyment, meeting new people. And I think we took that away from you.
And funnily enough, that's literally what we're here doing, this game. Because actually, when I got older, that's what got me through. Like, skeleton's a hard sport, and if I didn't have my friends, if I wasn't enjoying it, it's cold in Austria, it's cold in Norway, like, it's hard work. So, yeah, I think when I'm a parent, I hope if that situation came up that I would maybe do it differently. No disrespect, Dad, no disrespect, but yeah, that's similar.
That was awesome. Nice job sharing such a personal moment. Thank you. Wow. Shona.
Yes, mine was quite recently, actually, believe it or not. Not so much a childhood story. Earlier this year, I had a bit of a block, I suppose, with one of my events, my air rifle event. Without trying to sound too cocky, last year I was world number 1 in this event, and this year I was 9th at the first World Cup, and the top 8 go through to this final. It didn't bother me at all. I shot a really high score, it was just too high scoring for that match. And then, still we don't know what happened, but I've not been able to shoot a rifle since. I just, like, all the competitions I've had this year, they've all been awful, really bad, and, like, I've had the odd bit here and there where it's got, like, just better enough, and then it's disappeared again. But we had one competition in, I think it was March, and we trying for weeks. Like, it always tails off at some point and then it comes back. But this had been like 2 months of just solid crap, excuse my French. And we'd changed my rifle because we thought, oh, maybe it's the rifle. We'd tested all the pellets, maybe it's that, because I felt like I was okay. And usually, like, if something's up with my body, I would be able to feel it. We changed I don't know if you've ever seen those funky suits that we wear, but we changed the suit and nothing was helping. And my dad, like, I could tell he was getting frustrated with it because he couldn't work out how he could help me. I couldn't work out what was wrong, so I couldn't tell him, and we just, like, really struggling to help each other, if that makes sense. And yeah, this competition in March was possibly the worst one I've shot in 5-6 years. It was really bad, and I came off obviously being very frustrated and very upset with myself. And in infinite wisdom, my father told me, that's the worst match I've ever seen you shoot. I was like...
Really helpful.
thanks, Dad. Any, useful advice there? And he's like, not at the moment, no. He's like, I need some time to process to be able to give you any, useful advice. But no, that's the worst match I've ever seen you shoot. I was like, okay, there's not much I can do with that. So I ended up walking back to our accommodation because I just didn't want to speak to anybody. But yeah, it was not his or mine finest moment.
Thanks for sharing. And what would you have loved him to say?
I understand your frustration. I'm frustrated with you. This conversation did happen later on, actually at the Olympics as well. We've had this conversation many times this year. But yeah, I get that you're frustrated. I'm frustrated too, but not at you. I'm frustrated with you. I want to try and help you, that kind of thing. And he has said all of that, but I get that in that moment it must have just been too frustrating, and it's the not understanding that's the hardest bit, I think. Yeah. And the feeling like he must have been feeling really helpless, that he couldn't help me. So I do get it, but yeah, just pick your words. Choose your moment.
And that feeling of helplessness as a parent, so when Millie was doing skeleton, I imagine that was quite a strong feeling for you.
Yeah, so...
Thanks, Sean.
So you can imagine my thoughts when I first saw her coming down. I'd seen a couple of practice training videos where you've just got, it was a dry slope or something, you were going down or something, and that looks all right. That looks safe, it's only 40 metres or whatever it is. But the first time I saw her on the ice, it was literally a split second, and I'm thinking, where's she gone? Because as she's disappeared around the corner. So having that feeling that she's putting herself in danger, and I can't. I mean, she's in a different country, and I can't be there. There's been times when she's hurt herself during an athletics competition, pulled a hamstring or something, and I'm the first one over the barriers running to her. But being in another country, going down a slope at 70 miles an hour, I just felt helpless. What can you do when you're in that situation?
Yeah. And you had a few concussions there.
Yeah. Do you want to share a little?
Well, yeah. So I suppose as well, there was one particular time when I had a pretty bad crash, ended up in hospital, and I think the point of contact was actually Mum at that point, and she just gets a phone call of, don't worry, Millie's been airlifted to a trauma unit in Austria. It's quite intense. And I think in that moment she was kind of like, I'm getting on a flight now, this is what it's going to be. But no, I think it was my choice at that point, and didn't get into skeleton until I was 24. And they knew that, you knew that as my parent, that I was putting myself in situations that I was well aware. It was, and I think although it could be dangerous, I'm still here. It was good.
Makes the blisters on my hand from playing tennis feel quite minor. And Laura, last question, and then we're going to move to Q&A. Given what you've just been hearing, how is this going to shape how you will parent?
I don't know, because I think it's really hard. I think from the positives from my experiences, I definitely would love Edie to be able to try lots of different things. And something, I think, because all of our time was taken up doing lots of different sports, I never really did music or anything like that. So I think I'd love her to just have as many opportunities as possible, because essentially that's all it starts with, isn't it? An opportunity to do something. And the local table tennis club, if that wasn't there, we wouldn't have played table tennis. So it's just taking those opportunities where we can. And then I think, having listened to everyone, I think it's mostly just about probably just listening a lot more, maybe, and from my experiences as well, where when I was a teenager, not wanting to talk really and reflect on my training, when I get picked up, know that that's not me being rude. It's just that was just training, good or bad. Let's talk about other things. And And my parents were generally pretty good at that, but I think that was the only where we butted heads now and again, like growing up. But yeah, just that really.
Cool.
Yeah.
There's a lovely thing that I saw recently, which I think speaks to that, which is instead of asking your child immediately when they come in the car, what was the score? Like, I love watching you play. How'd it go? Did you try the stuff out that you've been working on? You don't have to get straight into that scoreline. And that then shows actually what you value, because the first thing you ask isn't the result. And I think that's really, really powerful, because young athletes will internalize that, for sure. We're going to open it up. Thank you, everyone.
I was just going to say one more thing,
sorry.
just on that, like where you asked about the thing before and then what you just said. I just think also there's so much in the moment, like everyone's, like from your story as well, like everyone's in that moment as well, and it's not easy. No one's ever perfect, but it's like just knowing it. It's like being aware of those things, but it definitely, like, no one's reading from a textbook in all of these moments, and that's why we love sport as well. It's emotive and it's in the moment and it's fiery and everything else. But those conversations like you had with your dad after, if anything like in the moment didn't happen, then you have them reparable.
Yeah, that's great.
After, like those, I just wanted to say, like, because it's hard to be perfect, but being aware of.
That's a lovely point. Lovely point to finish on, and a round of applause for our panel. Thank you. So, if you are watching at home, then keep plugging in your questions, and Kirsty will feed them in to us. You have some? Cool. But let's start in the room. So, does anyone have any questions for our panelists? Yeah. Oh, sorry. I think we're going to throw you the mic.
I'm not going to throw it. I don't want to knock it.
Hi, Shona. I'm Catherine. I support my son who's doing pentathlon. But just on the shooting front, how did your father support you in the mindset for shooting at the target and nothing else?
Wait for this to come back. Believe it or not, I think it was probably the other way around. I think I taught him that skill. He has to remind me of it regularly now that I've learned it. Like I actually started doing yoga when I went to university. It's going to sound like a segue, but I'll come back to the point. I started doing yoga when I went to university because I've got arthritis, and I needed to do something that was exercise, but that wasn't like heavy for my joints and stuff. And through that is when I found sort of mindfulness officially, I guess. And I realised that actually that was what I needed to do for shooting. And that sort of approach, I don't know if any of you have ever done mindfulness, but it's really useful. But that sort of approach of focusing on your breathing, I had to do the same thing for shooting, and it was focusing on that shot and letting everything else go. Once I'd learned that, I taught him. And then when I get frustrated or I'm sort of emotionally charged or whatever, he has to then remind me of that and bring it back. So it was definitely a collaboration, I guess, on that one. But I really do. I think it works for lots and lots of sports. I can only speak for target sports, really, but my boyfriend comes from a rugby family. His father was a kicker, and we had a long conversation about it, and it's the same skill. It's a slightly different movement pattern, but it's the same skill. So any kind of target sport, it is just that sort of mindfulness skill that you learn, which is pretty cool, I thought. Hope that helps.
Thanks for the panel. Supporting my daughter who's a hockey player, and there's no hockey experience within the family, some sport experience. I hope probably everybody's experience when we all go, oh, this is what happened. It was the ref, it was the pitch, it was my boot, it was the day. How and when do you find to speak truth to your child, especially if you can't bring it onto technical terms?
Claire, why don't you give that one a go?
Goodness, that's quite a difficult question, isn't it? Good question. Yes, I suppose we were in the privileged position of knowing the sport so well, and also so we could see very well when Lawrence was sort of doing the right things or when he sort of got lost in a fight. And I think my husband was probably was able to be more direct with him about that sort of thing, about saying to him when things didn't go very well. More than me, I think I realised that it wasn't a good idea to try and pass on our knowledge to him. But do you mean to challenge what your daughter's saying? I mean, do you mean to challenge excuses for losing? Is that what you mean?
Excuse, I mean, sometimes they may be genuine, but of course, how to turn into a learning and growth mindset rather than a fixed mindset. Yes. And I suppose I did. I mean, I think we did both try to draw it out of Lawrence when he'd lost or got fed up or got cross or, something had gone wrong. I think we did eventually learn to try and draw it out of him rather than to say anything directly. I suppose that might be part of the answer.
Yeah, do you understand? Yeah. I think it's she'll figure it out. How I don't, if you don't mind me asking, how old is she?
15.
Yeah. At 15, I was doing athletics. I was not good enough to be here. I could have been here and I wasn't. I then went on and represented Great Britain for skeleton. I found my own way. I figured it out. I think the most empowering thing is to kind of let her on that journey. If she wants it, she'll figure it out. It's all about having the experiences and the exposure at this point to get those, okay, that didn't go quite right this time. What's it going to be this time? To have multiple experiences, as you've said, she'll learn from that and hopefully in time develop that understanding of herself. As parents, I feel like the biggest support you can be is to, like I said at the beginning, to be there. The coaches are the ones that pick out the technicalities, and that's good to have that separate conversation. The biggest thing, as I said, you can be there is just support and the consistency from an athlete's point of view anyway.
Can I just add to that real quick?
Yeah.
So, again, from Millie's point of view, she started off in athletics, track and field and went on to skeleton. I could support her through athletics because I did it myself. I went through the coaching courses. I coached for a number of years. When she Lillehammer or wherever you would be, and she'd say this happened or that happened, I couldn't say, well, try this. I would have to question. So, well, what should it have been like? How should it have felt? What should you have been? What time should you have been hitting that first checkpoint? And those sort of things. Because in that respect, I have no idea.
That's good.
Yeah. So her coach would have gone through all that with her. She would know what she needed to do. If she didn't do it, she should know that she didn't do something or do it right. So, like I say, in that respect, it's about questioning and supporting that way. Yeah.
Let's. We've got two in the room. How many questions do we have online?
We don't have any online. I can add a few.
No, we're fine. We'll keep going in the room. Yeah.
Hi there.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I'm Jill.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing some very personal experiences, which we really, really appreciate. My son is a pentathlete, just getting into it. He's 15, but I sometimes wonder that he doesn't eat enough. But he goes through these kind of growth spurts, and then he doesn't want to eat. And if he's fencing it kind of from 8 till 10 o'clock at night, then 11 o'clock he wants to have a munchie attack, and then I'm thinking we should be going to bed. How did you tackle nutrition? And what role did it play in your kind of sports? And did you keep a diary?
Who'd like
Both
to
a
take that?
personal diary and a nutritional diary. Sorry, that's about 4 questions in one.
Yeah, I think I got some experience from learning nutrition when I was at uni, actually. So it's so important for the kids to eat with other full nutritional value. So it's definitely a good question to ask. For me, I suffer from Crohn's, and I think I have done for a long, long time. I've only been recently diagnosed in the last sort of 3 or 4 years. But in shooting, I kind of, stomach's here. When I then put my elbow to try and shoot, anything that's in there is then like sitting there under my elbow, and it just makes the gun move. And I find it really, really difficult to then eat before I shoot. But it is so important that you fuel for your brain to be able to work and for your body if you're then doing something really physical. So if he's struggling with what he's eating, then a food diary is really, really helpful. And if he can get some nutritional support, then that's super helpful as well. I would say though, if he's struggling to eat before he's competing, is trying to work out some things that he can eat. And contrary to what most people would tell you, sometimes Haribos are okay. I ate a packet of Haribos before the World Championships, before the final, because it was the only thing I could get in my stomach that wasn't going to then make me not be able to shoot. But making sure that he does have proper meals, and actually it's not the end of the world if there are weird times, because he needs the nutrition more than he needs it to be at 9, 3 or 9 whatever times wise. So I think even if he's eating 5 meals a day instead of 3, little and often is better than nothing, that sort of thing. So it can be a really difficult one to manage. Also making sure he's always got snacks, and like good nutritional snacks, but also snacks that he will eat. That's the biggest thing I think with teenagers especially, is like you give them cereal bars and things. Most of us hate cereal bars. I hate cereal bars because they're dry. So finding snacks that they are going to eat, rather than just having cereal bars in the bottom of their bag that they don't eat, I guess. I don't know if that's helpful.
Yeah.
Sounds very helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So ours and
yeah. I can't tell. So.
It's probably more for you, Sam, actually, in terms of most of the people, it's like individual sports where parents. Do you come across many sort of senior or level where it's more team sports, where you've actually got, a parent trying to be in charge of a team of 11 or 7 netball, where one of those is the child, and how that is different from a parent of an individual sport athlete?
So we have someone, I was a tennis player, so we have someone who would be better to answer that. Sorry to put you on the spot. So if you take the microphone.
To the audience.
Sorry. Introduce yourself just briefly, and that question was to you.
They said we should have left at 1:45. I should have left. My name's Emma Aboise. I am a netballer and captain the England team. And sorry, was a question around if you're the parent and you're coaching a group of players.
Yeah,
and
how the dynamic changes, or how many scenarios that this doesn't seem as common.
Yeah, I was never coached by my parents. My parents were kind of a little bit like Laura's in terms of they would either not necessarily be like lovey-dovey, emotional, never congratulating me, supporting me. They were working, I would just go off to netball. And so my parents didn't ever coach me, but I was in lots of teams that I think when I was younger where there was a parent coaching, and sometimes some clubs actually kind of split families up in terms of you could coach at our club, but you couldn't directly coach your child. But I think it's a difficult relationship because typically parents are harder on their child in the team environment. And it actually, I don't necessarily know whether the coach, who's the parent, I don't necessarily know whether A, they realise they're doing it, but also the impact it has on the other players in the team, so not just their child. And so it's actually a really difficult space to navigate and understand. And there probably should be more support and coaching for coach parents who have to coach their child. But I think sometimes it would take the maturity of the child or another child in the group to talk to the coach and say, oh, you said this. And sometimes I think when we were younger, so let's say we were under 15s, I think, and I was in a team, and I think people who are under 15, you are quite young and a bit immature, so you don't necessarily know the psychology of the situation, but you can appreciate what's happening. And so occasionally, I think I remember one child crying because of how the coach has reacted to, so let's say child A was crying and the coach was the parent of child B, and the way the coach had reacted to child B made child A cry, and then the coach had to go and comfort child A. And then I think the coach then got an appreciation of how they were impacting the group and the team. And so it is a really complex scenario. At that age, in terms of sport, you need coaches. So just like Millie's dad got involved in coaching because one coach has 50 children, the same happens in netball and in team sport. So we still need parent coaches, but I think it's trying to help them understand that when you step in this scenario, you're a coach and you have to try and dissociate yourself with being a parent. And then at home, you can try to be a parent and support your child. But I think it would be a great thing you might be driving your child to training, leave the parenthood at the door, and you might say, oh, at the session today, hopefully you're going to get X, Y, and Z out of it. But that's probably enough, because all the other people who are going to the session don't have the coach telling them what is going to happen. And then on the way home in the car, even, I would also say, don't debrief the session, because as a child, it takes you time to, as a parent and as an adult, it takes you time to process. But children process things in a lot of different ways. And I think in terms of the time frame that it takes them, it can take them a while. So actually, on the way home in the car, just talk generally about life in general and let the child process things. And then you might then drop a hint in the conversation. So the question that Sam said in terms of, how do you think it went today? That's a really good open question. So then they can come to you with whatever. I think it's quite difficult. I've got a 13-year-old nephew, and he basically, I'll be like, oh, how was training today? What did you learn? And so then I have to start, I guess, trying to understand the situation. Sometimes in the scenario, he's tired, it's midnight and he wants to eat food. Let him eat the food and I'll leave him. And then other times I'll be like, oh, what kind of drills do you do? And so it's like, almost to him, it's like inadvertent questions, but I'm just prying and trying to get bits out of him. I kind of use it as a coaching tool in terms of trying to help him remember what he learned at training, as opposed to me wanting to see how training went. Because sometimes you could do a training session and you're literally like, it's gone over your head, you've not remembered. But I will stop talking because I wasn't even on the panel and I shouldn't be here. Thanks.
If I may just add.
Thank you. Hi, so I'm Kirsty, I work for the True Athlete Project. I'm mentor lead here at the school games. Just to lean into what Amma was just saying there about children not being able to process, they're still in competition mode or they haven't even processed what's happened in the competition. There's some really interesting research that's been done on athletes, and it found that athletes haven't even processed what's happened in the competition for up to 5 hours after the competition's happened. So they need that decompression time. They literally cannot talk about it. So if you're sat in the car or you get home and you're eating dinner and you're asking your child to tell them about their competition, they literally cannot do it. And all you're going to do is push your child away and get them to close down in that moment. So I think there's definitely some power in holding back and being mindful of giving them that space for them to decompress in that moment, and then to come back to it perhaps at another time. And the other piece I was just going to add to your question at the front around what conversations can you have if you're not a parent that maybe has the technical knowledge. I think there's a piece that you can do around bringing it back to how they've shown up to that event, that performance. So actually we've done some work with pretty much all the athletes at this school games with our mentors around the athletes understanding what their best effort and their best attitude looks like and how they can show up and bring that. So almost bringing their performance back to the process of the performance rather than the performance itself, the result itself. So that sort of language of how was your effort today? What effort did you bring? How did you show up? What attitude did you bring today? That's language that's going to be common for all of the athletes that have been at this games now, that you can perhaps use, that doesn't require you to be technical and understand tactically what was happening or around the rules, whether that was the correct rules decision, but it brings the locus of control back into them, and it allows them to really take ownership of their own performance rather than feeling like that's out of their control. So that's something that you can definitely take home with you as a little something to take out and have a conversation with and get curious with your child.
Yeah, getting curious with it. So it's not like if they say my effort was a 2 out of 5, that's a bad thing necessarily. It doesn't require frustration or anger in response. It's like requires curiosity in response. What happened? Did you sleep okay? Are you thinking about some other things? What was going on there? That's a... how are we doing on time?
We've got 20 minutes.
Oh! More questions.
Thank you. I've got a question. Hi. First of all, thank you for all the pieces of wisdom. We are trying to support our child who is into tennis, which is a sport that involves lots of losing, whether it's points or games or matches. So it's up and down, as you know. So what did you as parents or as children do to keep the fun in the sport throughout all these ups and downs and hardships, and just what can we do to just think, look, this is a game you play because you like it. How can we keep the fun in there?
Great. Laura, do you have a go? Go for it, Sean. Okay, yeah. Sure. Sure.
I think for me, I turned it into more of a game about the process rather than about like the outcome. That's kind of what Kirsty was just talking about. But it was more about have I done my technique as good today as I did yesterday? Have I like, is my process as good as I did it yesterday? And like taking the losses out. Like, I know it's a different sport, but for shooting, it's like I've hit a 10 or I've hit a 9, and it's almost like I hit the 10, I win, I hit the 9, I lose. And it's almost more about like, okay, I've hit a 9, but did I do that process really well? And it's not about what's on the screen, it's more about like, was that a good shot? Because sometimes it's not down to you as an athlete. Sometimes the wind takes it out, and like sometimes the lighting's funny, and like there's so many uncontrollable things that it's not all, the outcome's definitely not up to you necessarily, but the process is. So I used to play games, or I still do. It's not even I used to. I still train where we play games around how many times did I do my process well, how well did I do my process, and things like that. So it's like completely not about winning or losing. If that makes sense.
That's great. In tennis, if I can just check, we really struggle as a sport to allow young players to experiment, because when you're younger, generally, if you're a bit more defensive, you get results earlier on. So it's like you play it safe, and then you're not actually trying the things that are eventually going to help you in the long term. The rating system, the sort of structural things as well, don't help, because if you lose to someone with the same rating, it's actually a negative thing. Then you hear people saying, oh, you shouldn't lose to John. So immediately you're like, oh my God, I can't lose. So I really, really, really encourage like experimentation, and as much as possible, again, thinking into the process. Like so for me, I got really, really nervous before matches. I knew that in the long run, it would be better if I was an attacking player. That suited me. But I would get defensive because I was so anxious of making a mistake and whatever else. So I would make a process goal. Can I get to the net twice in a game? Every game of this match, I'm going to try to get into the net twice. It's an attacking play. And then, even if I lost the match, I can at least score myself on that particular thing. That requires you to remember and to have a little cue and to have a conversation and to know that someone's ready to have that conversation at the end to check back in on. But fundamentally, it's a kind of releasing away of the need for winning in the short term, and really being okay with kind of playing for the long term.
Just a really quick one. Just sometimes it's just good to have a think about what are the bits that you like about the sport that you really enjoy, and why do you do it? And having a way out is always an option as well, that you don't have to do this if this isn't bringing you joy more times than it's like more than it. If this isn't bringing you joy, you know what I mean, more times it's not then you know you don't have to. It's not something you have to do. So knowing that that's an option, because if they really really do enjoy their sport, then they'll find a way of keeping it interesting, and their coaches will too. But that's really cool. But yeah, just going back to making a list of all the things that they love about their sport as well is sometimes quite handy, because it's easy to forget. Like you said, it's tough. It's like, especially like in loads of games, and it's hard, isn't it? Like the lifestyle's hard sometimes as well. So it's just going back to the roots. Like why did you start in the first place, and which are your favourite bits, and then maybe you can build something from there.
Tennis is quite a serious sport, so I didn't as I've worked now in so many sports, I've learned so much more about tennis and how different it is and how serious it is and how quiet it is in the tennis hall. And so I think even in your coaching session, is this your player? So even in your coaching session, like, you can experiment, like try and hit some crazy drop shots, try and hit like an extra fast one, like just push it, experiment, feel free with it. It doesn't have to be all the same, like rally backhands cross, rally forehands cross. Now I come in to do my volleys. Like, mix it up, it's all good.
And that reminds me of talking about experimentation. Lawrence and Richard, who I mentioned, had a lot of fun experimenting with different ways of hitting their opponents. And Lawrence is slightly double jointed in his shoulder. He's got quite lax shoulders. And they invented a hit that nobody else had done, ever. Nobody in the world had done the hit that they invented. And they practiced over and over again. They had such a lot of fun. And then they would take this way of hitting out into the next competition and befuddle everybody. So I think the creativity, I mean, it's interesting what you say about experimenting.
Put some music on as well.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I can't do it without music.
Yeah. Really.
Have to be music.
Hello, my name's Lucy. My daughter's a wheelchair tennis player. So while we're on the subject of tennis, I think there's some extra dimensions put in when you've got a child that's disabled and requires a parent as a carer.
Yeah.
Which we're all three of us are sat here, and tennis is such a lonely sport. So we're put in the role of being with our children all the time, and taking them everywhere, going to tournaments with them, putting them on the court almost, and then that's when it gets to its most difficult point, because I know, I mean, I struggle the most. I think we all struggle. Did not realise, because I'm not from a family of tennis players or particularly sporty, apart from horse riding, but just for fun. But suddenly you're thrown into this world where your child is under so much pressure on the court, and you cannot say a word. You're not if you're in an ITF competition, you actually cannot even look like you're making any sign or anything to them. You can encourage, and that's it. So I suppose my question is, I struggle to watch matches, so I've taken, for my own health, because my heart rate goes through the roof, mostly the choice to not be at the courtside. I have a system now where other mums text me the score while I'm somewhere else. And my daughter quite likes that because she's being independent, and she also doesn't have a mother who's shouting from the sideline.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we're going now forward into a world where we may be able to have coaching in tennis. So I struggle with the whole thing. And how do you, as a tennis player, how would you have felt with your parent on the sideline? You know, I sit there and I do this or whatever. I do watch her, and I nod a lot and smile a lot, regardless of what's going on. But how do you feel as a player if you've got like the parent there, or is it, I don't know if this applies to any other sport, if you've got the parent there, if you haven't, because when she's doing badly, she kind of wants me there. She wants, I feel like I've abandoned her. But when she's doing well, she doesn't want mum going, come on, at the courtside. So to get the balance right, I just don't know what it is. I don't know how to do it.
Sounds like you're doing really well by thinking about it and trying. And Brad Gilbert, the famous tennis coach, coached Agassi and Andy Murray. Used to wear sunglasses. You couldn't tell anything. Any reaction? It's tough. It's tough. How old's your daughter?
15.
Just hearing from how you guys have been talking, it feels like the cool opportunity, even though parenting a young athlete can be really difficult, it can also be like truly beautiful, like the togetherness that you've described and kind of riding the waves and the ups and the downs, but there was quite a common theme of communicating openly being really, really helpful, and that increasing understanding between you. And I wonder if, I don't know, it would be interesting if you shared quite openly with her like how you feel. That might give her quite an interesting perspective, and who knows, maybe that just like releases something that's a bit sort of tense or difficult.
She knows how I feel, I get too nervous, I get too nervous. But on another occasion, she did say to the umpire, "Do you think you can remove my mum from the side of the court?" Only encouragement, but she like, "Do you think you could remove my mum from the side of the court?" So there's like these two things. But I know when she's down, some other time, she's desperately looking for someone in the crowd to support her.
Yeah. So
it's a really hard thing, and she's got cerebral palsy as well. So there is a slight processing delay. It's not necessarily she's in touch fully with what's.
We talk about athletes having process goals. Potentially you could have a process goal for yourself in watching the match. So being there is supportive. Actually offering too much more than that, like shouting, generally is just adding something that actually, when you've got the ball to hit and the court to move around on and all the stuff in your head about the score and who you should beat and who you shouldn't be, like, that's enough. That is enough without an extra stimulus coming in. So yeah, maybe like being there, some nodding, you're with it, but also kind of aware of your own emotions through that process. It's really difficult. Yeah, good luck. Probably got time for one more.
Hi, I'm mum of a pentathlete as well, who's also a fencer. And my question is really about multi-sport and how you help develop that mindset for multi-sport as opposed to a single sport. I think particularly because there can be a lot of frustration in multi-sport because they're sometimes training with people who are really, really good. And they're good, but they're not going to be necessarily the best in that single sport. But across the multi-sport, they might be doing quite well. But it's just really, really hard as a parent to get that across. So it was just if there were any tips on that. Thank you.
Charles?
Yeah, that's it's a tough one, isn't it? Because in a single sport, I'll give an example for Millie. Single sport, athletics, sprinting. Individual sport, you train to be the best you can at that particular thing. But then, at the end of near the end of the competition, it's a 4x1 relay, and you've then got 3 other athletes. You might have maybe 200 metre sprinters, 200 metre sprinters, that have different training disciplines. In her mind, she wants to win. It's having that balance to kind of say to her, look, your individual sport is this. This is what you want to excel in. And at the time, the 4x1 was a bit of a fun thing, but you could also do well at that. But it's not too bad if you don't, because you go back to your individual sport. So I guess in terms of, in your case, it's got to be pretty difficult, isn't it? Trying to strike that balance and how you,
I mean, one of the ways I often say to my son is, particularly when he's like, oh, I'm not as fast as so-and-so.
Yeah.
And it's like, they're not doing 4 other sports. But then
exactly right, yeah.
But so-and-so is, and they're better than me.
Yeah.
It's just trying to get that balance.
So again, I'm sorry to keep bringing this back to age, but like children develop at such different rates, and I think it's so easy to be like, oh, such and such, because she's my age, I should be there.
Yeah.
Take away the age. Like, there's so much physicality that's happening. Puberty is obviously a thing that's going on, and naturally that has a massive impact. And I know I always say bring it back to the fun, but keep that as the main thing that is the focus, as Sam said about, okay, what in this event did you really enjoy? Okay, now we're doing a different element to the event. So, what is it about this that's going to work? Like, take out the other people at this point. It's not about them, it's your journey. What are you enjoying about it? There's always skills that can cross over in each event, and honing in on those is probably something, if you want to look for improvements, like something that can tie everything together. And you'll find something as you go. Like, I wasn't a multi-eventer, but there is a skill set to everything. Look for those that you can tie in between. Just take out the other people. Because it's hard when you then start competing internationally. When I did skeleton, I could not look at the scoreboard. Like, that was not something that helped me. So removing that was like one of my super strengths that helped me. And actually, if I'd have done that from a young age, I'd have been like excellent at that at the time. So that I needed that. Yeah.
Okay. Just a tiny bit to add. One of my positions is called 3P, so I've actually it's one event, but it's got 3 different positions in it. So it's similar, I guess. I kind of think of it as when you're doing one, you're kind of taking a break from another one. So it kind of gives you a bit of space from one, like especially if you're frustrated. I've got one it's called prone, but it's basically lying down, and it looks like it should be the easiest one because you're just lying on your belly. But I find it really sore on my shoulders. So I love it when I don't have to do that one, and do one of the other ones as like fun, I guess. If that one's not really gone very well, then I'm doing something else that I am enjoying more, and just like making sure I do enjoy it. But yeah, kind of thinking about them as like, I guess five different things, and you're taking a break from one of them to do a different one. I guess I don't know if that's helpful, but that's sometimes how I think about it.
Thanks, Shona. We are out of time, so just another huge round of applause for our wonderful panelists. Thank you so much. So a huge thank you to Loughborough University for hosting this amazing event. And a huge thank you from the Triathlete Project to the school games. They have believed so wholeheartedly and been so passionate about creating experiences for your children at this games that are enriching and safe and nurturing, and that's the future that we want to see going forward at all levels of sport, and we can all play our role in that. We, the Triathlete Project, run a global mentoring program where your young athletes can actually be paired with one of our mentors for a whole year, 1-to-1. So check us out. We've got lots of different things for coaches, for young athletes. Feel free to stick around and have a chat. Loughborough University will also be here to have a chat with. And I think that's it. Thank you so much for coming.
Shy.